Hey, it's me, your dry skin. I'm craving something we're missing.
All right, I think we can begin. Sakshi, I think you
Yes, ma'am.
you can take
Good
over.
afternoon. Yeah, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sakshi, and I warmly welcome you to Poles Apart, the World Bipolar Day Roundtable by Swayam Foundation. We are deeply grateful to our esteemed panelists and our partners for today, Taiwan Foundation for Democracy and Mann Talks. In 2014, the journey of Swayam Foundation began with 5 founding members meeting up for coffee and sharing their passion for social sector and mental health. Since then, it has grown and expanded into a community of over 2,000 mental health enthusiasts, caregivers, lived experience survivors, psychology learners, counselors, clients, and mental health ambassadors. We welcome you to this vibrant and growing community. Please follow the links in the chat to know more about us. Follow us on Insta, FB, LinkedIn, and Twitter. The links have been shared in the chat box. If you would like to join the community of mental health enthusiasts, psychology learners, professionals, and enthusiasts, stay updated on our upcoming event, courses, opportunities. You can join the WhatsApp community in the group in the link that has been shared in the chat box. I shall take a brief moment to introduce myself, and while I am doing so, I would request the participants to put up in the chat a little bit about themselves, your name, city, and you are joining from which place you are joining. If you would like to share whether you are a person with lived experience of mental illness, a caregiver, a mental health professional, psychology student, or any other interest, please share in the chat box. I am Sakshi Sharma. I am an educator. I am working. I have enrolled myself in the counseling courses with Swayam Foundation. 15 years back from now, when I was my son was born, there was a turning point in my life when my loved one was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I was really shattered that time because I had to take care of my young one who was about to arrive in 2 months and my loved one. So my responsibilities were divided before my son was born. So when my son was born, I welcomed him with loving arms, but at the same time, I had to leave him sometimes with my grandparents because my other part of duty called me. Today, after 17 years, I have accepted the truth of my life, and now being a caregiver to my loved one, I'm handling both my job and my home. Acceptance is the key, I feel. As you all know, today is the World Bipolar Day. But do you know why today is commemorated as World Bipolar Day? Let's have our intern Ria share a bit about that. Ria?
Okay. Smooth pause, proper coding.
Ria, are you there?
No, I don't see.
Okay, I don't think she is there, Sakshi. I think we can move on. Maybe we'll come back to it later.
ठीक है, नहीं है तो नहीं, ते म्हणून तुमच्या ते
So today
So
we have eight.
but just to put it out there that it also happens to be, so 30th March happens to be the birth anniversary of the famous painter and artist Vincent van Gogh. I'm sure you've heard of Vincent van Gogh. And he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder posthumously when after he had passed away. And in the memory of his brilliant work and also the suffering and misery that he went through, at that time, it was very difficult to get the correct diagnosis at the right time. And of course, treatment was miles away. So in his memory, this is the day that has been given as the World Bipolar Day. So just wanted to share that. It's very important. And often creativity is linked to bipolarity also. We may come to it later in the session, but please go on, Sakshi.
Thank you, Shrinkhla ma'am, for sharing this.
Sakshi, you are on mute.
Okay, sorry, ma'am. So today we have 8 amazing panelists in the roundtable, and we shall be having a Q&A at the end. So once again, we would like to thank our partners for today, Taiwan Foundation for Democracy and Mann Talks. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Mr. Amrit Bakhshy. Mr. Amrit Bakhshy has been a carer of his daughter living with mental health condition since 1990. Alongside his professional roles as a banker and management executive, his commitment to mental health extends beyond his family, as evidenced by his involvement in various significant roles. He dedicated 5 years of serving on the institutional board of NIMHANS and contributed to the National Consultation Committee during the formulation of Mental Health Care Act in 2017. Mr. Bakhshy lent his expertise to the advisory committee established by Maharashtra government under the Rights of Persons with Disability Act. Mr. Bakhshy is also an accomplished author, having penned a book titled Mental Illness and Caregiving, tailored for families supporting individuals with mental health challenges. Furthermore, he served as a president of Schizophrenia Awareness Association from 2010 to 2019. He is known as revered name in the mental health advocacy and support. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us today. We are so honored and grateful.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you.
We would like to welcome Mr. Jyoti Sangle. Dr. Sangle is a consultant psychiatrist practicing for over 25 years in Mumbai and Hyderabad. She has served as the head of the Department of Psychiatry at Holy Spirit Hospital, Mumbai, and is visiting psychiatrist at Dr. L.H. Hiranandani Hospital, Powai. A winner of Major Jennings Prize and coveted National Bhagwat Award for the best research paper, she has publications in national and international psychiatry journals. She also has been a regular contributor to newspapers and magazines on various aspects of mental health. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Sangle.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We welcome Dr. Pratibha Gehlawat, Associate Professor, Department of Psychiatry at IHBAS, Delhi. She has over 10 years of experience in the field of psychiatry. She is a Life Fellow of Indian Psychiatric Society and has a number of publications in indexed national and international journals to her credit. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Sangle. Gehlawat.
Thank you. Thank you.
A warm welcome to Jasjeet Kaur for Mann Talks. Mann Talks is a mental health initiative of Shrinkhla Sahai Foundation that provides holistic mental health services and makes therapy accessible. They also offer a free online course on mindfulness in English and Hindi. Jasjeet is a mental health counselor and psychotherapist by training and education. She currently heads the mindfulness team at Mann Talks and has been instrumental in developing the mindfulness course by Mann Talks. Thank you, Jasjeet and Mann Talks, for being a part of the panel.
Thank you so much, Sakshi, and the team of Swayam Foundation. I'm feeling glad to be here. Looking forward
Thank
to
you
this.
so much. Thank you so much. Today, we also have on the panel Shrinkhla Sahai from Swayam Foundation. She is an award-winning psychotherapist, a mental health educator, a caregiver to a loved one with bipolar disorder. As a co-founder and executive director of Swayam Foundation, she has spearheaded transformative mental health training programs and Swayam's unique support group. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here and be on the same panel with so many esteemed colleagues.
Let's welcome our next panelist, Meera Sreekumar. Meera Sreekumar is a corporate and commercial lawyer, a mother, a bipolar survivor, and advocate for mental health awareness, juggling the demands of a legal career with responsibilities of being a mother to a toddler. Meera balances her professional, personal responsibilities along with her condition. She is a passionate advocate for mental health. Through her blog and Instagram account, we are putting up the links in the chat for you all to see and follow. Meera also finds joy in dancing, sharing her performances on social media, proving that resilience and self-expression can thrive alongside adversity. Thank you, ma'am, for coming.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Swayam Foundation and the team for having me here. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, ma'am. Next on the panel, we have Swati Agrawal. Swati Agrawal is a lawyer by training who works in the social sector in the field of diversity, accessibility, and inclusion. She is also a mental health advocate and uses her own experience to create awareness about invisible illnesses and mental health. She is also the guest faculty for lived experience at Swayam Foundation's mental health training and programs. Today, she could not join us due to some medical emergency. We welcome on the panel Anuradha Tripathi. Anuradha is a bipolar survivor, former entrepreneur, marketing professional, and an author. Her mantra in life is live life, there is no tomorrow. Thanks for joining us today, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. And now the moderator for today, Geeta Lal Sahai. Geeta ma'am is an author, award-winning filmmaker, and mental health advocate. She is the founder president of Swayam Foundation. Her film, I Remember, based on experiences of Alzheimer's patients and their caregivers, has won many national and international awards. She is a recipient of Rex Karamveer Global Fellowship and Bronze and Silver Karamveer Chakra Awards. She has also received the Sahitya Kosh Samman for her literary contribution in 2021. In her career as a TV journalist, she made several documentary features around gender, women's rights, and mental health. Her coverage of women abandoned by families in mental health institutions sparked off a pioneering media campaign around mental health, stigma, and human rights in 1990s. Swayam's mental health podcast, Zindagi Matters, is hosted and produced by Geeta ma'am and has been featured in top 5 India mental health podcast last month. I request Swayam team to put up the link to the podcast in the chat box. And we have a special edition of the podcast for World Bipolar Day being released tonight. We shall be sharing more details about it soon. So with that, I hand over to the moderator to begin the roundtable. Over to you, Geeta ma'am.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining, despite so many other things, so many distractions, that you took out time on Saturday afternoon, late afternoon, and came here. I thank from the bottom of my heart to join us all in this important discussion on bipolar, poles apart. Why do we call it poles apart? That will, as we go along in the discussion, we'll know why is it called poles apart. And first of all, let me say that I understand that caring for a loved one with mental illness can be both rewarding as well as challenging. I admire the strength and dedication it takes to support someone through such circumstances. Your insights could help our viewers understand the complexities for caring for someone with bipolar and how to offer support in meaningful ways. Please know that I approach this conversation and moderate this conversation with empathy and respect for each one of you. I'm Geeta Lal Sahai, and my childhood was spent observing my uncle battling mental health issue. And at that point in time, I'm talking about 1970s, the mental health scenario was very, very dim. And nobody knew anything except one word, which we all know. So let me begin by reading this statement by a bipolar survivor, and I'll just read it out. I was actually manic a lot of times that I would take on workloads and I would say, yes, I can do it. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do that. I was conquering the world, but then it would all come crashing down and I would be more depressed than ever before. This is by singer and actress Demi Lovato. In just a few lines, the world of bipolar survivor is highlighted by her. So let me begin by asking all the panelists, share one experience. It can be as a carer, as a survivor, as a doctor, if you have come across some patients that really challenged your thought, belief, existence, and life's parameters. Just in 1 or 2 lines, maximum 1 minute, please. Let me begin with Amritji. You're on mute, Amritji. I think we can't hear.
Yes. ब्लेंडा का हे म्यूट दिसत नाही म्हणे म्यूट दिसत नाही ते हे तर मी केलं म्यूट वर गेलेत का
We can hear you, Amritji. You can go ahead.
Okay, yes, it's clear now. You see, I was not able to hear you properly, so I couldn't manage. So I requested my colleague to help me. Okay, so did you ask a question or?
No, I asked you to share one experience.
Okay.
It can be as a carer, survivor, doctor, that really challenged your thought, belief, existence, and life's parameter. As a caregiver, as a carer, if something has changed your life.
Still, I have not been able to hear properly your question. Some experience you want me to share, and what is that experience about? Some incident which moved me a lot? Is that,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You see, we have one NGO in Northeast in Guwahati, and they pick up mentally ill persons from the street, and they treat them first the physical part, then this mental part. So they picked up one elderly lady, and they were looking after her and seeing what physical part of the treatment is required. And then they found pus and some this parts which were damaged in her body, the genital parts. So they asked her, what happened to you? And she said, my grandchildren have done this to me. So they made some inquiries and search, and they found some boys raped her, and after raping her, they insert a bamboo in her genital part. So something like what happened to Nirbai. So I was really very much touched, and that I think was the incident or story that I was told, which really shook me.
Thank you for sharing that, Amritji. Thank you. It's a pathetic, and like how people do it, we still do not understand that. So, Meera, will you share an incident from your life that really changed your perspective about yourself, about your life, about your ambition, about anything?
Sure, ma'am. As a bipolar survivor, to give you a background about me, I'm a type 1 bipolar patient. So in that case, when I have a mania, it's a full-blown mania. It's a psychosis that happens. So an incident that actually shook me or sort of challenged my existence was my psychosis in 2017 in Bombay. If I look back at it, it seems like a different world, because it was a psychosis, to just let the viewers know, it is when you go completely out of reality. It is a disassociation with reality. You go into hallucinations, you suspect your loved ones. You can be a harm to yourself and to others. So the week that led to the actual psychosis and the consequent forceful hospitalization, which happened in 2017, really shook my life, because myself and my husband had no idea what was going to hit us. And we had no idea of any measures to help contain what was happening. We were in Bombay. We had friends around us. There was no family. All of us were in our late 20s. So I remember when it happened, nobody had any idea how to sort of help me. And then it led to a forceful hospitalization. It was one of the most traumatic incidents in my life. And that really changed my perspective of my life. And it took a 360-degree turn of how I've seen my life from then.
Thank you, Meera. Thank you for trusting this space and sharing your part of your life.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anuradha, can I request you now to share something from which really shook you?
Yeah, Geeta ji. Good evening, everyone. So it would be, we met more than 8 psychiatrists in Bangalore before the last one confirmed that it is bipolar. And I was back then a psychology student in Mount Carmel, Bangalore, 3rd year. So I knew what was bipolar. And it shook me that I can't have this. This is not me. And then my parents brought me home, and I was on very heavy medications, and they had to literally pull me to the 2nd floor. And for next 1.5 months, the mania was so bad that, I used to say my mom ki ye aurat ko yahan se hatao, mujhe raat ko 12 baje khana chahiye. And, dealing with that sleepless nights for 1.5 months, I still remember my mom saying to her father that either God cures her or takes all of us as a family. From there to today, where I am here, I have no words. Today, I stand as someone who knows, even if she slips a little bit here and there, in 10 days' time, my psychiatrist, my counselors will pull me back to normal episodes, and I travel across India to do my work in marketing alone by myself. I stay in hotels, which is sometimes cannot be easy for somebody who is dealing with mental health condition. But yeah, that's what makes me proud of my own self.
Thank you, Anuradha. Thank you. That was so touching. Thank you. I do not know how you battled it out. Anyway, thanks a lot. And now Swati is not here because of some medical emergency. And Jasjeet, will you share something from your life or the people who you meet, how that impacted your thinking?
Yeah, so I remember like when I was in clinical training, I did observe, a few people who had bipolar back then, and I observed, but I would say like one of those experiences that really kind of moved things for me was when one of my very close friends was diagnosed with bipolar, and we became friends by like, when the person was struggling with bipolar already. And that moment I realized no matter how much I know or what I have learned, the experience is so unique. And even as a psychology student, even though I started training, I felt like I struggled to find ways how do I deal with the transitions. And it was just like it was so new, and I think that's the first time I experienced how unique the experience can be. And it doesn't, like, there is no like there's no criteria that's the same for everyone. And at the same time, I think as caregivers, it's really hard to sometimes look at how the transitions may look like, and how do you even understand, like, what are these signs? Nobody really teaches us. And I think I learned from that experience that there are things that you will learn only when you are experiencing, no matter how much training you get, how many degrees you have. But learning about any mental health condition requires you to understand lived experiences, I feel. So yeah, that was really eye-opening and very important experience for me.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jasjeet. Yes, you said it rightly. Lived experiences are the best teacher, in fact. So now, can I request Shrinkhla to share something for a slice from her life?
Okay, so to understand what shifted my thinking, having lived with a loved one with bipolar. Um, I would say that when you are a caregiver, it's really important to understand that when your loved one lives with bipolar, you also live with bipolar. And it took me some time to come to terms with that and to own my own experience as a caregiver. Another thing that really I feel, which is also very specific, not just to mental illness, but to bipolar disorder, is that the internal world of an individual can vary and can be so poles apart, as is the topic of our discussion also today, varying from severe depression to a state where your loved one may be suicidal, to mania, where a person may also go into psychosis. That it really took me time to understand that the internal world of the same individual can be the home of such different worlds, and that a person can be a feeble shadow of themselves when they are in depression, and they can be delusionally invincible when they are in mania. And that as a caregiver and also as a mental health service provider, to be able to create the space to hold both these worlds. I think for me, that is what the huge shift in understanding about life coming from bipolar disorder has been.
Thank you, Shrinkhla. Dr. Jyoti Sangle, would you like to share something from the patients you meet and how, being a psychiatrist, how did it shifted, your perception about the life?
So I will take a little more than a minute, but I'll share two contradictory experiences that I have had. I'll start with the negative one and end on the positive one. So I have a couple. I had a couple, and the gentleman was diagnosed with bipolar with me. And as Shrinkhla rightly said, the family lived the bipolar disorder with him going through his episodes. The wife really tried, supported, developed depression, looking after him. And it was difficult for her to hold on as a caregiver. The families of both the sides really tried to support, but it was exhausting for her as a caregiver and for both the families then to become their cumulative caregivers. So that I quote only to highlight how much of a toll it can be on the caregivers, and how, as you said, could be rewarding, but could be also very challenging. And to the opposite, I have a couple where the wife was diagnosed as bipolar by me, and she was studying management. She was in IM at that time. And her present husband, they were going around, they were a couple at that time, they got married. This guy has been so steadfast with her through all her episodes. Today they have 2 children. Both the children have been born in front of me, and this guy has been rock solid with her standing there, taken every episode in his stride, and she worships this guy. And the 2 children, the elder child, the husband has now educated about bipolar, and the elder son takes care of the mother.
Very encouraging and
So
inspiring.
heartwarming to see the journey of a caregiver from where they themselves can burn out to this gentleman who's an inspiration to so many caregivers of my patients. So he's so ready to help everyone out. You tell them to connect with me, doc. I will help. We'll form a community. He's formed a community of caregivers here. So his experience was something that really, I would say, touched me and has helped a lot of my patients also.
Thank you, Dr. Sangle. Thank you. It is indeed very motivating, indeed. And now can I request Dr. Pratibha to share from her experience of being a psychiatrist at Institute of Human Behavior and Allied Sciences? We can't hear Dr. Pratibha. You are on mute.
Now, good evening all. I listened to all the experiences you have shared, and I just want to say that I have learned a lot from, I have learned psychiatry from lot of patients only. So being a caregiver, I know my loved one having depressive episodes, not bipolar, but depressive episodes, as being a caregiver to that person. But bipolar disorder, I want to share one experience which actually shook that it can become so problematic. And I appreciate what ma'am previously mentioned, that there was negative experiences as well as positive one. But working in a tertiary care hospital, we are seeing most of the negative experiences, because many of the people, they belong to low socioeconomic strata, not able to understand, also low education level. So there are so many challenges we face in treating these in psychoeducating as well as managing these patients. So I just want, when I was posted in Rohtak, uh, it was also State Institute of Mental Health, there was severe mania, a female having a severe manic episode. She was having 2 kids. She has a family, very good family, and she had first manic episode after her marriage. And I actually went through all the things. Because there was disinhibition in that manic phase, so that is why she had many sexual contacts with many persons, running out from the hospital and then having contacts. So this disrupted the whole family, because so that was actually very, very, that so disinhibition, and there is so much difficulty in managing these patients. So this disrupted the family, the kids. The husband was not ready to take her back to the family and the in-laws and other things. So it is very stigmatizing for females, very, very, I think. But I have faced, and it actually helped me out to rethink about managing the things.
Thank you, Dr. Pratibha. You were saying people in your hospital mostly come from rural background and they do not understand, but I can vouch for it that a lot of people, even in the urban areas, they do not understand what bipolar is. And we have many cases, many celeb cases also, the family is not accepting and not knowing what bipolar is. So my first question, Dr. Jyoti, is to you, like, can you just explain in very short what is bipolar disorder and what is the basic difference between bipolar 1 type and bipolar 2 type?
Okay, so bipolar disorder is a terminology which has come into being in the recent years. This is something which was also called mood disorders, which was also called affective disorders. So the ones like us who have like kind of studied maybe 25, 30 years back, that time we studied it under mood disorders and it was still being classified as bipolar disorders. The nomenclatures were being developed. So if we hear a mood disorder or an affective disorder or a bipolar disorder, we are basically dealing with almost the same thing. And as it's self-explanatory, if I use the word mood disorder, it's a disturbance of the mood. So, but I am looking at a disturbance in behavior. I am looking at a disturbance in the thought process and a disturbance in the emotions. So there are three parameters on which you will find a dysfunctionality or a change. So the first thing that we usually see is a change in sleep, then a change in behavior pattern, and the underlying thing is a change in emotions and the feelings. So when we have in a same person, we have fluctuations of moods in both directions or in either direction recurrently, it's now called bipolar disorder. So I would mean even in an inflated ego or a high mood than his usual baseline, his or her normal baseline, or a dampening of mood than the baseline would be a high or a hypomanic or a manic episode, and a dampening in mood or spirits would be a depressive episode.
So what is the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2? What happens in
that was
bipolar
going
1?
to be my next. So this is, so when you have this, both the moods in the same person, then we try to look for possibilities of diagnosing bipolar disorder in a person. So in bipolar 1, we have both mania and depression, in which there is a proper manic episode, a proper high episode, which could be both behavioral, by thoughts and by emotions. And you also have a proper depressive episode, which are very, very well defined and decently prolonged at least 6 to 8 weeks of symptoms, unless intervened. This is bipolar 1. In bipolar 2, the depressive episodes or the depressive symptoms are much, much more prominent. And most of us see the depressive episodes. The high episodes could be not really proper manic episodes, but hypomanic episodes. But the highlight in bipolar 2 is more of the depressive episodes, whereas in bipolar 1, you will have both, which are really well defined. The striking difference being mania versus hypomania, and the recurrent episodes are mostly depressive in bipolar 2, whereas in bipolar 1, you could have recurrent mania, recurrent depressive episodes, or you could have a permutation and combination of either of them.
Got it.
So that is how I would differentiate 1 from 2.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jyoti. Dr. Pratibha, like there is something mixed episodes also. So can you just give in brief, like what do we, when we say mixed episode of bipolar disorder, so what do we exactly mean by that?
Actually, the mixed episodes, as ma'am has already beautifully explained, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. So there is a very clear-cut demarcation between the mood and behavior of the patient. Like mood may be very, very happy or very, very jovial or very extremely depressed. So these extremities are well defined in manic as well as depressive episode. But in a mixed episode, the two things get mixed. It is like very irritable mood Like we can see that the patient becomes very irritable. He is not very jovial, or both the extremes are not met. It is in between that both the symptoms, not all the symptoms of mania are fulfilled, not all the symptoms of depressive episodes are fulfilled, but definitely the behavioral changes which we see in the patient, the affective symptom is very, we find the patient very irritable, and it is very difficult to treat, because when we know it is clear cut depression or clear cut manic episode, then obviously very much clearly guidelines say that these should be given, and these medications and these things. But in a mixed episodes, we have to actually strike a balance between all the psychotropics which we prescribe to the patient. So in that ways, mixed episode is difficult also, and difficult to identify also.
Difficult to identify also, yeah. I hope it is clear to our audience. And Anuradha and Meera, I would like to ask you, like we were just talking about mania and depression. So what is easier to manage, depression or mania as a survivor? Anuradha, you can go ahead, and Meera can come after that.
Okay, so I'm bipolar too, but whenever I asked my psychiatrist, he would never go into details of 1 and 2. So I haven't had mania other than the time when I was detected in 2013. After that, I've never had a full-blown mania ever. I've only have had depression. So what is difficult to manage, according to me, is, of course, both. It's a bit of hypomania also, but I think depression takes you to a point where, at least hypomania, you feel very confident. So you're very happy, you dress up. Like right now, I'm actually in hypomania from last 15 days. So my dosage is increased, and I feel very confident and all. But okay, it's manageable as of now. And I should recover in few days according to my doctors. In depression, it takes you to a point where you feel suicidal. And if it doesn't reach out to your caregiver, the information, then you may end up doing it. So it's very important that, the first circle of your people, your family, know that you feel that way. And I have felt that way at least 8 to 10 times in my life, where I wanted to just jump from the second floor. And I had to go through a complete career shift, all thanks to bipolar. I had to leave my job all of a sudden because I was on Quitapin, and they said, you can't do during COVID online, offline, you have to come to school. I said, I can't wake up only because of my antidepressants. I sleep extra. How do you expect me to come to school? So I dropped my papers right away, and then I didn't know what next. So that led to a full-blown depression, and I sat in my balcony of second floor. I said, now I want to die.
So somebody was there to save you.
My husband was there, my cousin was there, my mom was there. And then I took all my pills together. And I said, no. And I kept running from one washroom to the other that I want to die. And then from there, it took me 2 years to figure out what next. Because now I know that with this, I cannot go back to teaching profession, wake up at the same time, go to school. It's very demanding. It took me 2 years, and I took up trading, and then I took up MBA. I opened my own startup. I ran it successfully with all episodes, and then figured out, okay, marketing professional. Went to the first founder without a CV, without an exit letter, without a salary, from the previous organization, because it was my own startup, and he gave me a chance, and today I head sales in that company. So it does take you to a very, very strong spot. And like rightly you have been discussing all this while, key caregivers are the key. Without them, probably, half of us would have not even survived our journeys.
Thank you, Anuradha. Meera, would you like to say something about mania and depression?
Sure, ma'am. So in my case, it's slightly different because I have got mania around 3 to 4 times, where it was full-blown manic episodes. And all the times it was forceful hospitalization. It was not like I was cooperating, or I could see my caregivers being in absolute helpless state of mind. They didn't know what to do. there have been instances where I've called the police on my caregivers. Like police has come home because I've called them saying that I'm not safe. So, so in my case, I would say for me, it's easier to manage is definitely depression, because it has been very long drawn. It has been very difficult, but at least I feel like there is some sense of, I don't want to use the word control, but some sense of visibility about how to manage it. And my caregivers are not so helpless either, because at least there is some sense where they sort of reassure me, they sort of console me, give me some confidence that I can get out of it. But in a full-blown mania, you consider them their worst enemies. So you don't listen. Like so in that case, I wouldn't want to choose either. But if the most challenging one is definitely mania in my case.
Yeah, thank you, Meera. And as a carer, now, since Meera, Anuradha, everybody is saying caregivers are very important. So as a carer, Shrinkhla, what is easier to manage according to you, depression or mania?
Okay. Wow. That's choosing between ek taraf khai hai or ek taraf, there's a sea and there's a so but yeah, I having lived and loved someone with bipolar type 1, where you do have full-blown manic episodes, and they have survived 3 and I have survived 3 of those full-blown manic episodes. I feel I do agree with Meera that even though, both are very painful to watch as a caregiver, I think, just adding to what Meera was saying, the difference is about insight. When you have mania, and definitely when it goes into full-blown manic episode with psychosis, there is zero insight from the person. They are delusional, right? And it's also very difficult to break that delusion. If you say, no, what you're saying is not connected to reality, you're probably going to be at the receiving end of it. So often as caregivers, we may play along. We may resort to what we call therapeutic fibbing, a lot of different, or sometimes, yes, confrontation. In depression, I feel that the person still has insight, which makes it a little easier to ask for support and therefore for the caregiver to support them. So, a couple of years back, or rather many years back, I used to be an educator working in a university. And in both the scenarios with depression and mania, my situation was observably the same. I'm sitting in the class trying to take a lecture, not able to take a good one, of course, because my mind is somewhere else. And I'm thinking I'm going to get a call and I'll have to take it. Now, that call could be that my loved one has disappeared, is missing, has gone to jail, needs to be hospitalized, has lost their job, could be any of these when it's mania. That call could be, hey, you've got to come back, because if you don't, I don't know if I'm gonna be around when you're back. That's depression. So, and we live through both. I still feel that it's much more difficult in mania to stand by and watch your loved one crash their life, often losing their job, losing their relationships. And sometimes those are irrevocable, because sadly our society is still not attuned to or doesn't have the empathy to understand and to forgive, to reintegrate, and to differentiate that this is a mental illness and this is an episode which happened in a very heightened state of that mental illness, and this is not who the person really is. It's very, very rare to have that. In institutions, educational institutions, workplaces don't have that kind of empathy till now. So the person's employability gets affected. their relationships get affected. We've had, I've watched my loved one lose a lot of friends and they never want to talk about it. And that's very, very painful to watch. So I'd say that if it's type 1, mania is very, very difficult.
Thank you for sharing and shedding light on the complexities of bipolar disorder. I appreciate, Anna, your resilience is truly admirable. Amritji, you have been in the mental health scenario for 3 to 4 decades.
Yes.
You run a caregivers group. So according to you, what are myths and misconceptions that usually your members face regarding bipolar?
Yes, so I would give a little background. You see, when my daughter's mental illness was discovered, then as a father, I wanted to learn as much as I could about mental illness so that I could be a good caregiver. So I reading literature at that time, this internet was not much there, this Wikipedia had come. So whatever information I could get, or going to the libraries and getting all kind of information. And now, of course, I have friends who have bipolar and they don't hide their illness. And you might have heard the name of Shrinkhla Sahai and
yes.
Srivatsa Nivesha. So both of them are so brilliant. They are so brilliant. I can't tell you. And when they are passing through lucid phase, they can contribute so much to the society. Akhileshwar Sahai was, had trauma also in childhood. He was molested as a male boy by his own relatives. And when he was selected in State Bank of India as probationary officer, then he appeared for All India services, and he was in railways for many years, Konkan Railway. He was the main person who worked on Konkan Railway, and now also lucid phase is in great demand, and he gets jobs very easily. So a lot of learning I did from him. We were on committees together. So I know a fairly bit about the bipolar disorder. And same thing is with Srivatsa. Both of them go through these phases. I mean, they pass through these phases. And Akhileshwar Sahai, of course, has maniac episodes more often, and depression is moderate, and Srivatsa has depression more, and maniac phase is hypomaniac probably. So now what I have read, which my colleagues, panelists will correct me, that now this bipolar is divided into 4 categories. And one is, of course, bipolar 1, where the manic part is more predominant. And this bipolar 2, where depression is more severe. And then in bipolar 3, both are moderate, hypomania and moderate depression. And bipolar 4, where there are those phases and those parts which do not fit anywhere. For example, if your, I mean, what I have read and discussed, that it should be, maniac phase should be minimum 1 week. And this depression should be minimum 2 weeks. Now, if somebody has depression for 12 days or maniac phase less than a week, then such cases will be in, because they have bipolar, only they don't meet certain criteria, they will be in bipolar 4. They will also need treatment, although they do not meet the minimum levels which should be there. So I mean, we meet our some of our patients to our rehab center. They have bipolar disorder, and we keep some treatment, give some treatment. We call our psychiatrist, or they have their own psychiatrist also, and we have counselors. One of them is RCI registered also. So they get some counseling. We look after them. Their erratic behavior, we don't mind. We accept that it has to be there. So we can't rule out the possibility of such behavior. So we carry on. I mean, this is what my experience or what my knowledge tells me.
Thank you, Amritji. Amritji put up a question, Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Pratibha. Like he said that there are 4 types of bipolar. So is that the latest research? Even I would like to know that.
Well, that is what I have read, and I have talked to some people, and these 4 types which I mentioned, this is just from my reading and discussion. If you want, I will again look for this information.
No, it's perfectly fine. I was asking Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Pratibha, like, if they have any knowledge.
Oh, my apologies. I thought you
about
addressed
it.
me.
Yes, ma'am. Somewhat sir is saying is right, because cyclothymia, in which the symptoms are not so severe, but there is a depressive phase and there is a manic phase, but they are not very severe, like hypomania or mild
So
depressive.
it can go unnoticed, right?
It can go unnoticed. So cyclothymia can be there, and unspecified, in which the duration criteria or the symptom severity criteria is not met for the full-blown syndromic, manic, or depressive episode, then it may. And ICD-10, the recent classification, international classification of diseases 10, and also DSM-5, it has included it, not otherwise specified category, and it needs treatment, surely.
So does it not somewhere, Dr. Jyoti, if what Dr. Pratibha is saying, does it not somewhere give like it gives more to misconceptions and myths about bipolar? But as it is, so many myths and misconceptions are there about bipolar. With this,
Yes, it is difficult because the term is used very, very loosely. So you would have someone come in and tell you that I have so many mood swings that I feel like a bipolar. So the term is being used very loosely, and also the diagnostic criteria help us finally diagnose it. But a personality disorder having mood swings because of pharmacological agents, because of substance use, all this gets so muddled up that it actually becomes difficult for us to really diagnose the 3rd and the 4th category. The 1st and the 2nd is very, very clear because the criteria are very clear. The 3rd and the 4th is always confusing, and bipolar by nature of its illness is always a longitudinal diagnosis. It's never an episodic diagnosis. So it's only over 1.5 to 2 years of observing a patient very closely do we tell the person that, okay, we think you may have bipolar. Till then, it's episodic. So usually in 1.5 to 2 years, as a clinician, we can make out, okay, what's happening. Is it was 2nd, 3rd, 4th criteria? But yes, you're right. It becomes confusing, and it also gives a lot of leeway to people who are not so clinically attuned to say that, okay, I'm a bipolar. Whereas it could be so many other things.
Jasjeet, like in Mann Talks, we'll take the questions later on, Jasjeet. After the discussion, we'll take the questions. I was asking, like, as ma'am, Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Pratibha has just explained about the bipolar and the myths and misconceptions about it. I wanted to ask in Mann Talks, like, when you get a person So how do you decide and what kind of therapy or what kind of treatment he or she requires?
Yeah. So, as for now, Mann Talks does not offer diagnosis, right? So often we have people calling on our helplines or booking appointments with us, and they tell us like if they have a formal diagnosis, and sometimes we have get people, who may identify as somebody who has bipolar. So I think we approach it from a very psychosocial support lens because we understand the limitations of offering therapy to someone with bipolar. Uh, like so how we discuss a lot of factors that have contributed to the development of this condition, and we focus on understanding their experience of it. One thing I was thinking aloud that when we get a diagnosis, when somebody gets a diagnosis, there are people who find it empowering that now they know what it is and maybe they'll have different ways to manage, they'll find resources. But some people find it really hard to accept it, and they often question even the standardized measures of diagnosis, that how are you fitting me in this criteria. So, and I mean, of course, there are varied reactions to these diagnoses. So, in Mann Talks, we create a room for that lived experience. And of course, whenever we feel that somebody is on medication, the first thing that we do is to help them build a relationship with their psychiatrist, like ways of communicating with their psychiatrist. We also talk about their human rights because sometimes people say that, okay, I have got this prescription, but there was no conversation about my experience. And I think some people struggle with that. So we often inform them that, how to go about having conversation with your psychiatrist, how you can deal with side effects, how do you want to manage your symptoms while you're on medication. Ask your psychiatrist what sort of like what sort of measures to be taken while they're on medication, if there's any other supportive ways for them to manage their own health while they're on medication. And during episodes, like as we were talking, that the experience of depressive episodes and mania are very different, right? So sometimes it becomes really difficult to handle and manage manic episodes, especially on a telephonic counseling setup, because either there's less insight or the person may not respond very well to reflections, or just like discussing the ways in which we can manage. Whereas for depression and when someone is feeling suicidal, we offer crisis intervention. We focus on safety planning, and we have some long-term clients uh, who have been diagnosed with bipolar. So for them, we do create a long-term plan. How to identify some of the signs, or whenever you feel that there's gonna be a transition, locating support systems outside their
So basically,
therapy
you
or
locate support
psychiatrist.
system outside Mann Talks, right?
Yeah, yeah. We try to locate that so that they can manage better because we have
But,
limited access to them, like direct access.
but bipolar does change the personality. And let me share one thing. When I was interviewing a bipolar survivor, she said something like this, and I would really like to share that. Bipolar robs you of that which is you. It can take from you the very core of your being and replace it with something that is completely opposite of who and what you truly are. Because my bipolar went untreated, as a lot of you were saying, untreated for so long, I spent many years looking in the mirror and seeing a person I did not recognize. Not only did bipolar rob me of my sanity, but it robbed me of my ability to see beyond the space it dictated me to look. I no longer could tell reality from fantasy, and I walked in a world no longer my own. Anuradha, I wanted to ask you, like you mentioned something to this impact. So what, if I were to ask you, what uncertainties and loss of control over your life did you experience?
My biggest uncertainty was so I'm all India topper of 12th standard. So my parents saw my name in Times of India when I was just 18-year-old. So I was always, from my school days, I used to be in multiple things. I was very creative. So if my teacher told that Anuradha, you have to write a poem on this topic, Anuradha would take 10 minutes and write a poem, and she can write a book in 10 minutes. That was Anuradha. And she developed generalized anxiety disorder when she was in 9th. From 7th grade, she knew she always wanted to be a teacher. So she trained herself, she did her studies, she did her B.Ed, she did her Cambridge International Diploma course, Masters in Economics, and joined into teaching. Fulfilled that for 5 years, and suddenly one day, I'm on Quitapin because it's COVID. I'm trying to have a baby for 2 years, unsuccessful, and the school says from next week, school, you have to come, there's no other choice. Impulsive within 3 days of time. I'm just crying for 3 days first because I can't go. All these 5 years, none of my employers or my co-workers, other than 1 or 2 good friends, know that I'm a bipolar. Because the moment I tell that to my institution, I don't know if I'll have my job or not. So the uncertainty that the very week I gave distance education IGNOU Masters in History's final exam, that very week I put down my papers saying कि अरे मैं तो आप 8 बजे बोल रहे हो क्लास लेने को 7:30 I need to log in, मैं तो 8 बजे ऑनलाइन क्लास होता है, मैं तो 7:45 उठती हूँ, क्लास लेती हूँ, then I go brush my teeth. That's my status right now. तो वो तो होगा ही नहीं. There is no possibility on earth that I can come to school. So my husband goes and puts down my paper, and I get an exit letter which says that she has left the institution abruptly because of, in the name of bipolar, and hence her productivity wasn't her best, and I can't show that exit letter anywhere in the future. This so happened that within next 15 days, my cousin came to me with the idea of bootstrap company. We started out, I'm still in depression. Every day I pray to the universe to just give me that little power to wake up, waking up at 11 a.m., 12, starting my work. But since that mind is very intelligent, so once it wakes up, it will wake up and work hard. You know, that uncertainty kicked me for 2 years, 2 years where 2022, 10 months, I was an episode out of 12. The only 2 people I've interacted is my mother and my husband. Rest, you see my phone friend list calling me and missed calls at least 50 to 100 times. And I left talking to my own best friend. So that is the uncertainty. It took my core away, because imagine from the time you are a 7th grade, what is your age? You want to be something in your life. That whole thing is taken now. I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
To pick up from there, it's such a sad reality. I hope my heart goes out to everyone, that they don't have to do this as a bipolar or as any mental health, that they have to change their career or anything. My heart goes to them. To pick up from there and then pick up within less than 1 year a career of corporate, enter into it, become the best in the organization, all by yourself without any external support. That is what the creativity of bipolar also gives you.
Agree. But it is also true that bipolar makes you shift in your career very often. So, Meera, I wanted to ask you that you are a bipolar survivor and you are in a profession called legal profession, where every day you meet so many people. So, did you or have you changed your profession, like career path? Like, have you changed it, or are you still in legal profession? Like as Anuradha was saying, changing becomes sometimes necessary. So have you ever faced discrimination on grounds of your mental health? This is addressed to both of you. Anuradha, I'll come to later. Meera first.
So ma'am, addressing the first leg of your question, when I had my diagnosis in 2017, when I said that I had bipolar disorder, I had completed 5 years successfully in one of the top law firms in Bombay. And I was in the peak of my career, up for the next promotion. And just to give a flavor of a law firm role, a top tier law firm is like sleepless nights, lot of stress, a lot of work pressure. So when I got my diagnosis, I had to take a break for 2 years because I was not able to work. I was not in a state. My cognitive capacity was affected. I remember going to my doctor and saying, I'm not the same Meera I used to be. I can't think fast. I can't act on my feet. What's happening? So definitely I couldn't take up a legal job. So I had taken a break. Then my recovery as a lawyer has not been very linear. It's been start, stop, because of the condition itself. And I'm still continuing to be a lawyer, but I would be lying if I say I've not thought about a career change, because to give my best to my profession as a lawyer, I don't think my mental health and my health needs will help me do that, because of which I'm now a part-time lawyer and a full-time mother. And it's, yeah, as I just said earlier, I would be not entirely like transparent if I say I've not thought about a career shift. Having said that, I would also like to mention that I've had the support of a lot of very understanding seniors, clients because I have my blog, which I published from 2020. So it's been about my condition. I've been very open, be it in an interview or be it with my clients. So I've not faced discrimination as such. In fact, I've got a lot of support. I've got a lot of time and space from them. And I would think that it's because of the goodwill I created for 5 years as a lawyer. So that really helped me take a long way, because they knew that if there was a break in my work or if there was any sort of lapse, it's not me and it's my condition. They were able to make that distinction, I think, and they gave a lot of credit to the work I did earlier. I think I've answered both your questions. I hope so. Yeah.
Thank you. And you're lucky enough that you are in a profession, or rather people understood you.
I'm
And
grateful. Yes,
yeah,
yes, indeed.
so that's it. Anuradha, what about you? Did you face any discrimination anywhere in your career life?
All when I was in teaching. Every school that I was in teaching, I faced discrimination to a point where I was like, I can't open and tell this to the principal. It's not possible. And then you stay on Quitipin, you can't really wake up at the same time. So I used to go late to school. So then questioned for that.
No, did parents ever doubt your capability?
No.
Not teachers. I'm not talking about your peer group, but I'm talking about your students and their parents. Did they ever doubt your capability or said something to your principal saying that they wouldn't like their child to be educated by you?
No, I was the most loved teacher in most of the schools, or all the schools, if I can say that. And my
But did
students
they
are
know
all,
your mental health condition?
they now know, because my institute,
And no, at that point in time.
no, they did not know.
Because that's what the tragedy is. A lot of people, they do not share it. And even in the corporate office, even at any other office, there's always a clause. What is your mental, how is your mental, I mean, some question of this sort is written.
Yes,
I
yes.
remember I
So
interviewed
I
somebody.
did discuss this in my only in present job. I wrote it that yes, I'm bipolar. So my entire organization knows it. My founder knows it, and now he knows that she's not getting good sleep. So she's like, "Uske pani mein kuch dawa do." She brings revenue. She needs to only sleep. So we had 4 days holiday now. So everybody was like, "Please pray Anuradha sleeps." So this is first time ever in my life where, I'm not discriminated, but otherwise it was always to a point where I felt that if I tell this, my efficiency will be questioned.
Yes, that's very true. Efficiency is questioned, and often people do not take you in the jobs. And
Exactly. Yeah. Because, and teaching is a profession where you can't say, okay, 1 month I'm not coming. That's, future of children. I mean, of course, institutions can do something to help out around that, but that's a sad reality that, probably education sector isn't up for it.
And that's about the rights. Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Pratibha, like you might be getting patients, you might be saying, oh, I have to leave my job because of bipolar or because of mental health condition. How do you treat them? How do you advise them? What method of treatment do you take then? How do you console them, or rather bring them back on life and the track
Pratibha, you'll go first. Yeah.
You can take, ma'am.
No, please go ahead.
Okay. Actually, ma'am, what to all of you, very less number of patients are being seen, like who are doing job, who are in jobs. But whosoever is in job, we say that it is generally episodic in nature. So the episode will be passing by, and the natural course of episode, we just make them learn that with medication, these episodes uh, uh, will be remitted much more faster, and without treatment, it will take the natural course of time that you come down to your original or the um your basic level, basic wo. Then, huh.
Dr. Pratibha, you are saying very few people are there in the job. So what about the livelihood? Is there the family support they have? Like, how do they live?
They live actually with the family support only. With the family support only. So most of them, they just beg for the disability certificate. Please make, because what after us? So please make the disability certificate so that some pension or something they get after after we pass away or we are not with them, then we are able to get the benefits. The patient is able to get the benefits. So they are just begging for the disability certificate.
The family people. The family people.
However, in bipolar affective disorder, it has been always educated that it will be episodic in nature. In between the episodes, you are completely fine. So that is the thing we need to understand. They need to understand. In between the episodes, they become completely fine, and their work productivity actually is at the normal or their basic level. So that is that you have to continue your job, but keeping in mind that this episode will pass off and you will be having your uh, um, this basic phase, the pre-episodic, this phase of your life. Yes.
Dr. Jyoti, you would like to add something to it?
Yeah. So I would carry forward from where Pratibha said that, yes, the first step is to psychoeducate them that it is an episodic illness. So soon the episode would remit and they would touch baseline. But having said that, they are finally in a job, and it's difficult for them to justify their not so good functionality and absence from their workplace in every episode, because they in a job would have fixed number of leaves allowed. So, and usually during an episode, it's not uncommon to find people, the person coming and saying that I don't think I can handle it, I want to quit and I'll see what to do next. So my 2 bits would be this, that I usually tell them that don't take a decision about quitting during an episode. Let the episode remit, then we will revisit your decision about quitting or continuing or an alternative, or even informing your organization. We usually tell them that don't do that during an episode because your judgment is going to be clouded during an episode. We also try to telling them the facts of the illness, that there is a possibility that you will have episodes. So unless it's really important, try to save your leaves, because it's a possibility that you will need your leaves for the episodes that you may face, till we can get the correct combination of a mood stabilizer for you so that your episodes are reduced in both frequency, amplitude, and duration. So that's the second thing I usually tell them. And in a manic episode, I insist on them going on leave for whatever reason it be, because they land up overcommitting, and that sends them into a post-psychotic depressive spell, because then they can't handle it. So during a manic episode, it is best that we tell them to take 3 or 4 days of off, complete your sleep so that you don't overcommit to something. So I usually practically tell my clients to go on leave for when they are in the peak of a manic episode, because that saves them from the aftermath later. But yes, do we inform the workplace every time? In India, it's a decision taken according to the individual's relationship with their immediate boss. And as Meera said, in a profession like hers, with her clients. But I don't think we've reached a stage where we can make a generalized statement that yes, all employers should be informed and could be informed. It is still in a phase where we are trying to tap and hope that people would be more receiving to the information and to the concept.
Yeah, should and could can only happen when there's awareness about it. But as we all know that even in today's world, very little, but even the families fail to address and accept it. And as somebody said, acceptance is the key. So that is missing, not only from the person who's living with bipolar, but also with the family.
Yeah. So they kind of pressurize the client to go back and see, okay, if it's a daily wager, how do we run the house? And that's when we tell them that wait for the episode. After the episode, we will try to look for an alternative arrangement also. But in the meantime, during an episode, don't take decisions.
Yeah, right. So therapy also plays a very important role in bipolar or for any mental health issue. So I wanted to ask Shrinkhla that you are a carer as well as therapist. So how do you compartmentalize the two roles, and how beneficial is therapy for people with bipolar disorder? Shrinkhla first, and then I'll come to Jasjeet.
Okay, so yes, I do have a unique and very precious position of being a bipolar carer in my personal life. And I have also, used that knowledge and information and my own lived experience and observation to deepen my psychotherapeutic skills with bipolar disorder clients. So first of all, I'll respond about therapy. So some therapies are very, very useful for people with bipolar disorder. For instance, for emotional regulation and impulsiveness, which is such a key issue in bipolar disorder. DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, is very, very helpful. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is very useful. IPSRT is also a very useful therapy, especially for bipolar disorder. And often there is a comorbidity. I mean, Dr. Sangle and Dr. Gehlawat would be better, people to talk about it. But there's often a comorbidity of bipolar disorder with other disorders also. And in that case, an eclectic approach works very, very well with clients with bipolar disorder. Now, the other important thing is, as a therapist, well, so honestly, I don't compartmentalize my roles. I feel like my caregiving experience informs my psychotherapy practice with bipolar disorder. The difference being, of course, I'm not trying to, or I'm not going to be a caregiver to a client. But to be able to understand what is the kind of caregiving support they need to help the client and their caregivers go with the most important technique in managing bipolar disorder, which is the mood chart. To understand where are they in the mood chart, which ranges from 0 being 0 to 10, 0 being severe depression with suicidal ideation and maybe even suicidal actions, to 10 being psychotic mania. Where is the person on the mood chart? And even for the caregivers to be able to identify what are the symptoms that their loved one shows, when they are moving from one mood state to another. So those are really important things. And I feel like sometimes it's very, one of the main issues arises when the family is in denial, if the family is in denial about the person's condition. And it's often coming from a caregiving perspective that I would go forward and have a very focused and difficult conversation with the family members to make them understand what is the nature of this illness and how to take care of it, and of course to push through the haze of denial and resistance and all of that. So yes, that's what I can say. You are on mute.
I forgot. Jasjeet?
Yeah. So, to what Shrinkhla just said, I would like to add like a couple of modalities that have worked for me as a therapist. I think narrative practices have really influenced the way I also look at these mental health conditions, and externalization is a concept that we often talk about, and it helped me manage it with one of my clients who was formerly diagnosed with bipolar and ADHD, where they were able to give give a mental picture that what does this look like to them, and also um, as we were talking about that how like bipolar disorder or any diagnosis for that matter really integrates into your identity, and like people would say I am bipolar, but whereas these modalities externalization can really help them see that there is a bipolar which is coming near to me, it's gonna affect me in different ways, how does it limit me, how does it support me, because oftentimes as Anuradha was also sharing that the creativity, right, that comes with it. So like one of my clients, I would like to share the experience when they were able to externalize their diagnosis, they were able to see, okay, when I can understand when it's nearing me, it's an external entity, when it feels closer, when it feels far away, there are so many ways it helps me also, it helps me feel confident at some times, and yeah, sometimes it really drags me. So how much of that I want in my everyday life, that was the point where we started talking about managing it. So, an art-based therapy also work with some people. Of course, it will depend on where the person is on the spectrum. Like some level of insight and realization has to be there, or and especially when they are not in like the severe episodes. Then these modalities also support people in in managing these conditions.
Jasjit, one more thing. You are mindfulness expert also. So,
Yeah,
and you particularly say it for caregivers. Like, so what is mindfulness? In short, if you
yeah,
can just tell us
of
for the
course.
audience and for me, myself also,
Yeah,
because even I am not
yeah,
very well about this.
yeah. So I remember Anuradha saying that live your life, there's no tomorrow.
Hmm.
So mindfulness is being here, being now. As simple, like in the most shortest form,
How is
it's
it
the
helpful
present.
to caregivers? Like,
Yeah. So when we say how I mean, as we were talking about that as caregivers, people were sharing how their minds are, always scattered. So they are always constantly worrying. There is anticipatory anxiety, what may
hmm,
come up, or especially when there is a transition in symptoms, or there's a shift in
hmm.
emotional outbursts or mood fluctuations, and they struggle with the consistency. So caregivers oftentimes they may feel on the edge, and mindfulness is that tool that can help them really ground. So I can take a minute and I would like for all of us to experience the mindfulness right now, and then I'll just like quickly summarize some of the benefits that it may have for the caregivers. If I can request everybody to just pay attention to your breath. You don't have to like deep breathe or anything, but just allow yourself to focus the air that you are taking in. Feel the air near your nose And when you're exhaling, feel. Do you feel like a warmth while exhaling? However you're breathing, just stay with that. If it helps you, you can close your eyes gently. And ask yourself, where are you right now? Is your body present with you as you are listening to this conversation today? And you can move in a way that feels intuitive. If you want to stretch your back, stretch your arms. Like I've been sitting for a while, so I would like to stretch a bit. Now, just look around you, the room that you're sitting in. Notice any three things. You can notice the color, shape, any three things around you. Can you hear some sounds? Can you notice any three things that you are hearing right now? It could be your breath also.
Sorry, Jasjeet, can we do it
Yeah.
later on because we are running
Yeah.
short of time? We have
Yeah.
to. So can we do because
Yeah, of course. So, like as we all experience this, even this is mindfulness, and we don't really like caregivers often struggle with finding some time for self-care,
Yeah.
because obviously, as Sakshi was also sharing, that there is so much to manage. So I think mindfulness helps with self-regulation on an individual level from day-to-day activities and chores, finding some time for self-regulation. And when your mind and body are in sync, you are aware of your needs, which also helps in expressing your needs to the person, which eventually can aid in dealing with compassion fatigue. So that's really important, how aware you are of your needs. And not to forget that, as we were talking about acceptance as a key, mindfulness is about accepting your experiences as they come, not as pleasant, positive, negative. And when we are able to see ourselves from a distance with all the not so acceptable emotions, that's how mindfulness can help. So practicing mindfulness in daily life can really help you just to experience your feelings as they come. These feelings could be guilt, frustration, anger, even grief and loss, right? Because we feel that we shouldn't be feeling this. Oh, it's the other person who's struggling, not me. But we oftentimes like don't acknowledge our feelings. So that acceptance for our own emotions become really important, and that's where tapping into the needs of your body through mindfulness can help. The other way mindfulness can help is it really helps you connect with the person. So I oftentimes recommend people to
So that
practice
is for caregivers,
co-regulation.
right? Jasjeet,
Yeah.
that is for caregivers, like how it connects with the person, with the
Yeah.
caregiver. I mean, the person
Caregivers.
who is
So
living with the
caregivers
bipolar.
and the person who's receiving the care. So doing co-regulation and also making the relationship more than just the give and take of care, right? Creating some mindful experiences in your daily life, like having a mindful meal together where you're noticing, okay, what you're eating together, what you're smelling, how's the food like. Even that is like a mindfulness shared experience. So these experiences create room, and you just feel empowered enough to acknowledge your daily life experiences beyond disorders, beyond the caregiving roles that we are playing.
So caregiving role is very vital and important. So Amritji, you have been looking after your loved one single-handedly. How have you managed it, and did you ever face any challenge?
See, Geeta, I don't know from where the strength comes to do all these things, manage. There was a time when I was a caregiver to my daughter. I was caregiver to my wife. We fought cancer for 4 years. And she was in a hospital where the uh, doctors were very good, surgeons were very good, but they were not providing the facilities which we needed, and everything had to be done by the attendant. So as an attendant, you see, sometimes she would complain, my wife, at 2 o'clock in the night, it's severe stomach pain. So I would give her a painkiller, then 4 o'clock I would leave for the hospital, put her in emergency, and then get her a room booked because there was no advance booking, then take her to the cafeteria and spend 3-4 hours there, then take her to her room, then sometime blood transfusion, some 3 times you have to go to the blood bank to get blood for her. So I don't know. And you see, for medicines, you have to form a queue. And I used to be the oldest person in the queue. Sometimes somebody would show mercy and say that, okay, you go first and take your medicine. When money has to be, and then medicines have to be returned at the end of the day. Then you have to settle the accounts. It was very, very tiring, but I managed. And with my child, so all kind of experiences we had. She would suddenly say, I'm going out, I'm leaving the house. And she would go and disappear. Then I was worried that she is a young girl, she can get into some wrong hands, they will rape her and then kill her. So I would call my driver, we would look for her on the roads, on the streets. There were occasions when I went to the police station and asked them to help, and they say that no, 24 hours, only after 24 hours some complaint can be registered. Then try to find some contact with the police commissioner in Bombay. I was there at that time. And then get the help from them, and then we will find her sleeping in a park. So all these things we had to face, and she was very aggressive on certain days. And my wife used to argue with her, don't do this, do that. I will tell her, okay, let it be. She is not well, so she is doing these things because of illness. But my wife would argue with her or fight with her, and then she would attack my wife. My wife got the maximum beatings from her, and I had to intervene and separate the two. There were occasions when she would take a knife and come and try to attack me. So I used to keep cushions to save myself and hide all the sharp instruments in our kitchen. So, but I don't know from where that energy came. Now that she is in remission, so things are better. It is easy as I have grown older. She is a help to me. I mean, she takes me to the hospitals. She takes me for various tests. So my visits have increased to the hospitals, and she's always with me. Sometimes I get seizures when I'm not able to walk or I'm not able to move, and I would fall down. You see, because when I'm from the washroom, I am coming to my bed, then I get the seizure attack, and I am not able to judge the difference between the place I am there and the bed, and I would fall down. Now there is no one to pick me up. You see, my daughter alone cannot do that. So calling some help from the office if it is daytime, if it is late evening, then phone them and call somebody. So in all these things, she was helpful, but there were very many difficult days we had to pass through from. How did I manage? I don't know. I don't know from where the energy would come. You see, when your circumstances are such that you have no alternative, then you have to do it willy-nilly. You find strength from somewhere, and you manage the situation. I mean, I can't think of any other explanation.
Thank you, Amritji. And certainly it takes a strength to navigate through ups and downs of your loved one living with mental health issues. There's another very serious issue, like when Amritji was talking about medication and all that. Another serious issue connected with mental health, that is insurance. Can I ask Meera and Anuradha, do you have your medical insurance?
No.
No.
Did you ever try?
No.
No?
Yeah, but I got hospitalized for something else, and the doctor happened. I mean, they come and ask you, right, what medicines you take. So I say I take Diva OD for bipolar, and they write that. And then the insurance people don't
Yeah,
let
so
you
but
claim for the illness that you got hospitalized for. That
yes.
surely happens, yes.
So what should people do, Dr. Jyoti, Dr. Pratibha, and Amritji? Because Amritji, you have been with the 2017 Act, and insurance is something which is fundamental. Insurance is something which is human rights connected. So how can that be tackled? Because medical insurance is not given, and medication for mental health issues is a very, very costly business. So, and that's a human rights issue. So how can one tackle that, Dr. Jyoti, Dr. Pratibha, and Amritji? I'm specifically asking you.
Yes, Geeta ji, I think the problem is already tackled. The
No,
act,
it has not been tackled. It is
okay,
IRDA has
okay.
said that insurance can be
Let
given.
let me elaborate. You see, first thing is the Act provides that you cannot discriminate. Whatever policies you have for persons who do not have mental illness, you have to offer the same policies to person with mental illness. So law is clear on that. Not more than what others are getting, but you have to give the same to persons with mental illness also. Now, this Prime Minister's scheme, Ayushman Bharat, this mental illness is included in that, and persons have taken benefit of that also. Earlier, the insurance companies were reluctant to extend it to the mentally ill, even after the act was passed. So we followed it up with uh, this Insurance Regulatory Authority of India. They wrote many letters. Some people went to the court. Court gave them directions, and now willy-nilly, every insurance company has a specific policy made for mentally ill, or whatever is being given to others, they are also given to the persons with the mental illness. So I have no confusion about that because I am very much into such
Yes,
matters.
I know that.
Yeah.
Amritji, that is there on paper. But when
No,
it comes to
nowadays
reality,
it is no more on papers, madam.
no,
All
it is
insurance.
because last year I asked for somebody and the insurance agency categorically said, for this, we do not give insurance. I said, I'll complain it to IRDA. So they said,
Yes.
no, then you fake this, that it was before this or after this. It happened. So I am 100% sure that it is still happening. And on
In
paper, yes, we have so many laws on paper. Anti-dowry law is there, anti-soil law is there, but is it happening? No, it is not.
in this, you see, the advocacy is there, very much there, and it is there, and people. But one thing I want to say that if it is extended, and in my view, it has been extended. What benefit the persons with mental illness get out of it? You see, first 2 years you cannot get any this cover this policy. First, please let me finish. Let me finish. Please
Uh,
don't interrupt.
no. Darshanji, can you mute yourself? Darshanji, can you mute yourself? Amritji is
So,
talking and
uh,
your voice is, yeah.
so first 2 years, you will not get anything because it's an existing illness. Then secondly, for mentally ill, uh, it is 99% is OPD. It is not IPD. IPD cases are very, very rare. And IPD case, if it happens, that also 2 years at least you have to wait. So there is hardly any benefit available when a person wants to take advantage of the insurance policy. So it is not worth it. There is so much hue and cry for it, and one should take it also. Employers are also including. I have an insurance policy for myself and for my daughter, and which includes insurance cover for mental illness. That is State Bank of India's insurance policy. And things are much, much better. Some cases people may be refusing, but that refusal is at their level. It is not the policy of any insurance company. That much I can.
Yeah,
This-
insurance companies are not against. The point is like, as soon as they come to know about that you have a mental health issue, they, on some basis or the other, they do refuse. Shrinkhla, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, this in the case of my loved one, this is what has happened, that we had applied for the for the medical insurance, and it was rejected. And so I guess that, it is there in the Mental Health Care Act, but to operationalize it on ground, it may take a lot more advocacy, fighting with the stigma, and acceptance at many, many levels, and at a structural level, to be able to have that operate on ground as well.
Dr. Jyoti and Dr. Pratibha, do you have anything to say regarding this?
So I would agree with what you and Shrinkhla was saying, that on the ground level, it is very difficult. I agree with Mr. Bakhshy that the policies are in place. The IRDA is involved, is informed, has passed regulations, has sent all of us a circular. We have quotations, we have the quotes from the High Court, Supreme Court cases which have been fought and have been settled in favor of the person who has wanted to claim insurance for mental health issues. But when it comes to ground level, and we do fill in the form that we have admitted a patient for depression, practically 90% of them are refused. So it is practically the only way we are able to maybe get the insurance company to approve of the insurance in maybe 1 or 2% of cases is by showing it as a medical emergency and converting all the patients to be suicidal or homicidal. That's a small chance that we get their insurance approved. For a panic attack or for a depressive episode, we will never have the insurance approving. Or we admit them on the medical side, and the medical side shows it as a psychiatry reference, and then the medical insurance is passed.
Yeah, Dr. Jyoti, what I wanted to highlight was that when the insurance is not done, tomorrow if the person gets is to be treated for heart attack or something, then you see the insurance has not been done because of his mental health issue. He can't claim the insured money. So because the insurance was not done because of the mental health issue, and right now he has been admitted for heart problem. So he doesn't have the insurance. So where does the money come from? Even for 2 days or 3 days of admission in hospital for any ailment, it comes in a lakh. And Dr. Pratibha, you know that the people who come to you in your hospital, they are from, in your words, from the rural side. So how do they meet the expenses? And that's something which is given by the government to everyone. But the insurance companies are not taking this up. And people do not have capacity and willpower to fight it out in the court. Where is the money?
So what you are saying, Geeta ji, sorry for interruption, that if a person has mental illness, then he will not be covered even for other ailments. That person will not be issued a policy at all.
No.
This
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm saying.
so that is a very unusual situation. Earlier also they were excluding mental illness in the policy, but refusing to issue policy even for other illnesses because this person had mental illness is a very strange position. And Ayushman Bharat, under that, many poor people, they have taken full advantage for mental illness and for other related issues. Now, you see, if somebody has been refused uh, issuing of a policy for mental illness, then this refusal should be in writing. And then the matter can be taken up with the government, with the IRDAI, and there are people who are into advocacy, they will take it
There
further.
was a case from Chennai which was fought. But how, my question is, it is something to do with human rights. My question is, how many people have financial
Yeah.
power to fight? My question is like, how many people can have time to fight? You see,
So
you will beg,
according
borrow,
to
steal,
what
and give
would
the
be the
medical
solution?
expenses rather
You see,
than fighting it out in the court.
government has passed the law.
Government has passed the law.
The law has to be implemented. So if there is a non-implementation, the solution is to this complaint to the government or to go to the court for relief. Those are the only channels available. See, you say that it's a violation of human rights,
Yeah.
but what is the way to go forward? These are the only ways. I mean, we people cannot gherav the insurance company and demand and all those things. Legal ways are only to go to the courts. I know it's difficult to the court. I had gone to Bombay High Court for some of the issues, but unfortunately those issues got resolved. But now that at my age, for me, it's not possible to run and rush to the courts for getting relief. But there are people who are going to courts getting relief. It's another thing that sometimes court's orders are also not respected, and people have to go again to the court for relief again. And so these things happen, but this is not restricted only to mental illness. This can happen to any other illness or any other issue where compliance has not been done.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. And there are a lot of questions from the audience, which I would like to address to the
I
panel.
want to add to this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, sure.
I completely agree with Mr. Amrit ji in saying that the act has already passed and it is mentioned in the act. And in our institute, we have also the legal services aid available, Delhi Legal Services Aid available, which usually is provided once in a week. The advocate, they come, and whenever the rights of the persons with mental illness are affected in the way they are not getting the insurances or any other, the rights are violated, then they get the legal help. And definitely at ground level, lot of fight needs to be done, because in mental illness the other part is that the stigma also adds.
Yeah.
We also do not go for the mental illness. We also want, the patients also want to be claimed for any other medical illness, not for the mental illness.
Yes.
That is
Yeah, and IHBAS is the chairperson of this State Mental Health Authority. So you can always discuss it in State Mental Health Authority and take it up with the Health Minister also. Mr. Desai was very active in this area. So I don't know who is your present director, but this can be taken up. I mean, we complain that this is not happening, that is not happening. And what state has to do, state has done it. What courts have to do, courts have done it. But what we have done, we
Yeah,
cannot.
the action should be there. What you're
the,
saying
the,
that
the,
is action should be there.
the
So
We
what
all,
the actual problem lies in the in this, that state mental authority on paper it exists, but till now no funding, no. We are struggling with the government, Delhi government only, that we will get the funding and we will get the all the members to be constituted on paper, as well as it is to be functional. So problem lies here, so that we just ministry वही चक्कर काटना and all these.
So what we practically do is, so amongst the lot, there are at least 2 or 3 who have had it approved. So we kind of, the persons whose insurance is denied, we put them across to seek guidance from people whose insurance has been approved. So that's the way we are trying to build the community, that okay, it's take help from people who have had it approved and use the same channel. So gradually more and more people are taking it up, are trying to access it, are trying to use the rules, read the rules. But it does take a lot of effort even from the treating clinician to put them in touch with each other and build this community. But it is happening. It is, I would say, in 25 years of practice, if I have to quote, in the last year, I have at least have 20 people who have got it approved, which I feel is an achievement. So even if 20 people have had it approved.
Agree, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to know that it is happening. And
Yeah.
there are some questions which people would like to ask the panel. But before I begin the questions and ask I'll take just 3-4 questions. I would just like to make one announcement that tonight we are releasing our special podcast also, which is on bipolar. And we interviewed a bipolar survivor and a carer to her mother. How I found her was because I found her article somewhere about bipolar and living with a bipolar mother. So after umpteen number of phone calls, I managed to locate her and I interviewed her. So her name is Shubha Menon. If she is there, I would certainly like her to say hello to everyone before I play the podcast clip. Shubha, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, Geeta.
Yeah, Shubha, can you just share a slice, just in one sentence, about your caring and about being a bipolar survivor? Before I play the clip from the audio, because then let the suspense be there and people listen to your podcast interview.
No, so what exactly would you like me to share?
Anything about your mother, like you were a carer to her, or rather you were in childhood, the way you saw her, just extract, or I can play the...
Yeah, I think just play it because, there is so much.
It's okay. Thank you, Shubha, for joining in.
Yeah.
Can the clip be played?
My bipolar disorder manifested in very, very, very deep depression. My own bipolar, I don't think has affected me as much as my mother's bipolar. When my mother was manic, she used to talk a lot. She would, be hoarse, and, her throat would be gone because she couldn't stop talking. And her behavior would be really over the top, and she wouldn't know where her clothes are going and whether she's worn her shoes out and gone off to the neighbors, or whether she's worn one shoe and one chappal. She had no idea what is happening, and she was garrulous. And then obviously the neighbors would laugh at her, because of course they were so uncomfortable. Then one way to cover your discomfort is to laugh, So when they would laugh at her, we would feel terrible. I would feel terrible.
So that was the interview where she talks about her life as looking after her mother and being a bipolar later on also. So thank you all panelists and lovely audience. But let me put you just 1 or 2 questions. Dr. Sangle, is medication a lifelong thing? Somebody has asked.
Medication is a lifelong thing if you have more than 2 episodes. Point blank, brutal answer. But if you have had 1 episode, and you complete the course of what has been advised to you. In fact, just with 1 episode, it's unlikely you'll be diagnosed bipolar. But that 1 episode, if you complete the treatment, there is a good possibility, complete the treatment of around a year of medications, there's a good possibility you won't have the second episode. And when you have the second episode, yes, the treatment will be prolonged. But if you get non-compliant in your first episode itself, there is a good possibility you'll have a recurrence. And if you have a recurrence, then yes, the treatment does get prolonged. Mood stabilizers reduces the number of pills that you have to take.
So maintenance dosage has to be taken, and if somebody says that he or she does not, then I think they are lying. It is not true. Symptoms will come back and come back with a lot more intensity. And this is a daily thing happening. People, when they get well, they stop taking medicines, and then there is a recurrence, and it is very, very intensified recurrence. Many more medicines, if they are added, still it does not help. You cannot get the remission which you had received.
There's another question. I want to address it to Dr. Pratibha. Is there any link between bipolar and ADHD?
Yes, bipolar and ADHD, there is a definite linkage. If the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder itself, it gets untreated in the childhood, it then follows its progressive course and may land up into personality disorder as well as bipolar disorder, antisocial personality disorder, conduct disorders, and bipolar affective disorder in the later adulthood. So definitely in the early childhood, if ADHD is treated timely and adequately, then the possibility of going on to developing the bipolar affective disorder, it reduces.
There's one more question. What therapeutic interventions are there to manage bipolar? Shrinkhla or Jasjeet, any one of you, would you like to answer this, Shrinkhla?
So as we shared earlier also, CBT, DBT, art-based therapy, and IPSRT is also a very good specific therapy for bipolar disorder. And Jasjeet also mentioned narrative therapy and mindfulness techniques.
This hand has been raised by Sneha Masani. So can you say what you want to ask, Sneha? We can't hear you.
Yeah, just sorry, very quickly. We manage and okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Go on.
Yeah, sorry. So we've cared for a schizophrenic patient, and there was a lot of paranoia also in terms of manic episodes where the person would thought that, they're going to get attacked, they would hear sounds, there would be hallucinations, they would come to attack. And that sort of sounded very similar to a bipolar manic attack also. So I was just wondering what the distinction is, or how does one distinguish between a schizophrenic episode and a bipolar manic episode?
Dr. Pratibha and Dr. Jyoti, anybody can answer this?
Okay, so in a schizophrenic, when you're looking at a purely psychotic episode, so a manic episode, you'll have inflated ego, you'll have increased talk, you'll have flight of ideas, you'll have increased speech output, increased speed of speaking, hyper-religiosity, too much of spending, hypersexuality, decreased sleep, functionality, full-time high, and productivity. Schizophrenic or a psychotic episode, you will have delusions, you will have hallucinations, which is, you may not have an inflated ego. You may not have these things which are showing that a person is from his normal, it's an inflated balloon. Whereas when you have schizophrenia, you will have delusions, you will have hallucinations, you will have first rank symptoms like thought insertion, thought broadcast, a proper thought disorder. In a hypomanic episode, it's possible you will not find all of this, but you will find hyperactivity on all fronts in his life.
Okay, so with this, I conclude today's meeting and thank you all for trusting this space and bearing your challenges and sharing your stories. And these are the stories which never get told. And because they are not told, people are not aware about various mental health issues. Even now, families refuse to believe the medical truth if revealed to them. Stigma, discrimination, labeling all play their negative roles in putting the reality under the carpet. They forget that mental illness is treatable. Right, Dr. Sangle and Dr. Pratibha?
Yes, I would agree there. And more and more podiums of this kind in which we can integrate patients, clinicians, and caregivers is only going to spread the message and more aspects of the whole disorder further.
Thank you all once again. And Sakshi, please close the meeting.
As we draw the curtains of this insightful roundtable discussion on bipolar disorder, I thank each one of you with profound sense of gratitude and appreciation. Thank you, Geeta ma'am, for sharing today's session with such expertise. I would like to express my deepest appreciation to the esteemed speakers, the panelists, Mr. Amrit Bakhshy, Dr. Jyoti Sangle, Dr. Pratibha Gehlawat, Jasjeet, Shrinkhla Sahai, Meera Sreekumar, Anuradha Tripathi, Swati Agrawal, though she couldn't attend the meeting today. All the panelists present today, I must mention your expertise, passion, and dedication in shedding light on the complexities of bipolar disorder have truly enriched our understanding and inspired us to advocate for greater awareness and support for those affected by this condition. Thank you to our partners, Taiwan Foundation for Democracy and Mann Talks. I also extend our sincere gratitude to all the attendees for your enthusiastic engagement, thought-provoking questions, and meaningful discussions. Thank you once again to everyone who has played a part in making this session a memorable and impactful experience. As we depart from this session, let us carry forward the knowledge and insight gained today and continue to advocate for mental health awareness and support in our communities. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.